Okay, here we go. Get a few more peeps in the room. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night. If you're joining and it's really late, I hope not. I hope it's not too late for y'all. Um, we are very excited. I'm excited to talk with Mandar and hear his story, have him go through his project. I'm very lucky in that I got to see this presentation live. So we were presenting all of our mentees' work at GDC earlier this year, and everybody did such a wonderful job at putting together their projects and kind of explaining in depth their process and showing us their um, some of their workflow as well, which is really incredible to see. But live, it was really cool. Sage brought out her big TV, and we were all watching people walk by with like this like look on their face, kind of like an awe moment. We're like, whoa, like what game is this? And it turned out to not even be a game. It's actually just the project itself, right? And it was really shocking to a lot of people as they were walking by. Very impressive work. We made a lot of waves, I think, at GDC, and it was a great experience. But this was a really great way of getting our mentees really well deserved kudos and exposure, especially at such a high profile event such as GDC. And now I know that a lot of you guys probably couldn't make it. I wish you guys could, but I highly recommend going to local events if you can and see stuff like this. But we wanted to bring this straight to you guys here on our server, right? We have that wonderful privilege where we can kind of replay things and redo things here for you guys. And it was a request, so we're very happy to have Mandar come and talk us through his project again. And it's added inspiration at the end of my week, so I'm extremely grateful for it. And it's going to be fun. I'm very happy to chat with you. I hope you guys ask some good questions. You can drop them into the chat here on the side. I'd love it if you take a look at Mandar's socials. I'm gonna go ahead and drop that here in the chat for us, and you guys can follow him. You can connect on LinkedIn. I'm open inviting this to you, Mandar, for you in your name. But check out his art
Thank you
station.
for
Check out these projects. I'll drop these links again here at the end of the session. But just really really excited to get started and share a little bit of his experience with you. So and by the way, I'm Penny, so I'm here in the community. I help around Discord, and I'm here to support you guys through your mentorships if you decide to join with Vessel Forge. There's a lot of really good fun we have behind the scenes, and we're always wanting to support our mentees to the maximum we can, give you guys some really good, like I said, kudos and some promotion as well. So but anyway, let me stop talking. Mandar, take it away. Let's hear about you. Let's introduce you.
sure, sure. Thank you for that, Penny. Hi, folks. Thanks for joining in. It's early or evening, depending on where you are. We were just talking about that. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys showing up. So, for those of you who already know me, hi, it's been a while. And for those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Mandar Warde. I'm a material artist at Caterpillar, and today I'll be walking you guys through Sunstone Villa, a project I built during my mentorship with Jonathan at WesselForge. Quick note, like Penny said, I did give a version of this talk at GDC earlier this year. Since then, I have tuned it up a little bit and added more technical depth for you guys. So if you got that one, there's new stuff here for you. And if this is your first time seeing it, perfect. You're getting the better version anyway. All right,
Yay!
so
Very good.
let's get right into it. Perfect. So, a little bit about me before we dive in. I come from an electrical engineering background, and that's really where my whole way of thinking got shaped. That systems first approach is what eventually pulled me into technical art, and then I got into material art specifically. I hold a master's in game science and design from Northeastern University. While I was there, I also got an opportunity to teach as a graduate lecturer for some time, which was really a good experience for me since I love teaching. I've got about 6 years in games and simulations overall. One of my favorite projects being working for the US Navy. We did some simulation stuff for them, which was pretty cool. I can't really say a lot, but it was just cool. And yeah, now we are here. So with that out of the picture, the first picture that you see here is from last year at GDC. So when I decided I was serious about breaking into AAA material art, I knew pretty quickly that I couldn't figure it out on my own. I needed someone who could actually see the gaps. That's why I met Jonathan. We had like a small conversation that really stuck with me. He gave me some direct and honest feedback. He pretty quickly pointed out some core issues that some of my work had. Um, Up to that point, like you can see, this is everything that I did before the mentorship. My material looked good by themselves, but there was no system behind them. Each one was like a one-off thing, and that was a very different thing from how materials actually work inside a AAA pipeline. And that conversation is what made me want to learn from him specifically. That's when he offered a material art mentorship through Vesselforge, and that basically brings us to this project. So let's get right into it. Sunstone Villa is a small environment, and that was completely intentional. The scope was kept tight so that surfaces could do the heavy lifting. This wasn't about complex geometry or a large mesh, it was about building something where the materials were the main point. When Jonathan and I were setting out and figuring out an environment, a desert villa made sense. It gave us a clear material identity from the very start, and it naturally opened up a really diverse palette. Surfaces like sandstone, roof tile, rock, wood, materials that each have their own identity, but they still interact with each other in interesting ways. On the art style, we had deliberately landed up in the middle. I'll say that again. On the art style side, we landed deliberately in the middle between realism and stylized. If we lean too far into realism, we would lose that visual character which the concept artist tried to create here. It looked really cool. If we went fully stylized, we would lose the surface storytelling, the where, the age, the history that materials can really carry. So the middle ground is where both of these things could live together in harmony. So before I even opened up Designer or Unreal, the first thing Jonathan asked me to do was figure out how trims and tileables actually be structured across the whole environment. So I pulled architectural references and I measured them. Not eyeballed, actually measured them. I needed to understand how trim elements are typically sized, how they repeat across surfaces. From that, I built trim size cards, basically planning a tool that maps out how materials align and tile any texture work before even starting off with the project, right? So for resolution, I was following Jonathan's guidelines, which were 2K textures, roughly a 200 centimeter surface area. That's a standard production density. And it became the anchor point for keeping the textile density consistent across the whole scene. When you're mixing trims, tile levels, and modular assets together, that consistency isn't really optional. So a lot of what you see on the screen here is that exact same work and planning. Calculating sizes, approximating proportions, figuring out which part of the atlases go where, identifying repeating patterns, deciding what gets resolved by geometry and what gets handled purely through trim sheets. It's not glamorous work, I would say, but it's what keeps everything from falling apart later on. Trust me. Moving into the first material pass, this stage was about exploration and not polish. The goal was simple here: get early versions of the core surfaces into the engine as fast as possible. Not finished, just enough to see how they behave together in that context. Spending minimal time per material here was intentional. You're not chasing detail at this stage. You're just reading the scene, getting a feel of how the visual flow, and catching up problems before they get baked into anything. And problems did show up. Surfaces that were too sharp, hide information pushing too hard, things that were looking fine on their own, but they read really different in the engine when they were sitting next to each other. And that's exactly what this pass was designed to catch. Alongside that, I was also organizing the trim sheets, separating material types, wood from plasters, and so on. So what you're seeing on the left here is that work. Different wood trims laid out, each one sized based on how that surface actually is in the real world model. It's less exciting visually at this stage, but again, load bearing work, quite literally. After the first pass, I moved into refinement. For each material, I built over 3 variants: clean, chipped, and damaged. And that wasn't just an aesthetic choice, Variation sets are what breaks repetition and what lets surfaces tell an actual story. A wall that's only ever perfectly clean would read as a fake. So having just one tiling material wouldn't really make sense there. The wear, the chips, the erosion, that's what makes the surface feels like it's belonging in a real world. You guys probably know this already. This is also where the technical work got deeper. So I had to think about roughness variation, color accuracy, displacement mapping, and vertex blending. How are they actually interacting with each other, if anything is clipping or not? This is the stage where those systems get tested in the engine, not just set them up in theory. Okay, so some surfaces use like clean origins completely, and I could get away with them. Others used erosion and damage passes depending on where they sat in the environment, what story that surface was really trying to tell. The rock pavement went through the most iterations here. I'll be talking about more on that in the next few slides. So this is how the scene kind of looked in the Unreal Engine after the second pass. You can see the surface is starting to read as a coherent environment and not just individual materials sitting right next to each other. But that's something that's actually starting to feel like a real place, and not just geo sitting in your Unreal scene. So this was a checkpoint before moving into detailed work, which was like the final passes. So this is an overview of all three passes. And you can find this image on my ArtStation as well to get a better sense of how the progression goes. A little thing about me, I am lazy and I love procedural work. So I built a procedural rock generator in Blender. The idea behind this tool was to quickly generate rock meshes that still maintain a sculpted appearance. The generator starts with a simple cube and applies multiple level of subdivisions through different noises. This is essentially to simulate the kind of surface variation you would typically sculpt in a software like ZBrush. Once the high poly surface is generated, the tool can also produce lower resolution versions that acts as the low poly mesh. The high and low poly versions are then baked into Substance Painter and the resulting textures are merged with the rock materials created earlier. This allowed me to generate multiple rock variations quickly while keeping the workflow procedural and consistent. It was quick, it was really quick. Um, similar to the rocks, I also created small procedural cactus generators. The idea here was to generate cactus meshes that would vary in height, thickness, branching patterns while still using the same underlying system. This helped create like a natural variation across the environment without manually having to sculpt each cactus individually. Since this project was heavily focused on procedural workflows, building small generators like these helped me keep the environment flexible and scalable. So, one of the most important key takeaways from this project was knowing it's okay not to know what's wrong yet. You just have to keep iterating until the material feels right. The rock pavement is the clearest example here. The first pass, which you see over here, so the progression goes from here to here. Kind of weird. I could have probably set that up better anyway. So this was the first pass, and you can see on the top left, it looked fine to me, but the minute I showed it to Jonathan, he looked at it and said the funniest thing. The rocks are too sharp. Walking on that surface would break someone's ankle. We had a good laugh, and I realized that, yeah, he's right. That one note completely reframed how I was thinking about the material. Not just does this look correct, but does this feel like something that actually exists in the world? So I went back, blended the edges down in this version, and then I realized I could push further and add some sand drifting between the rocks, which you see in the lower two versions. And then I realized maybe it can be improved again. So I wasn't still happy with how the color was coming around, and I created this version. And I kept on going. Each iteration wasn't a fix, it was just information. It told me what the next problem was, and this was closer to the final version. So the next slide is where I'm showcasing the final version. So these are like three vertex blends, three material variations which I'm vertex blending. All right, so that was the journey of rock. Um, The second key takeaway was, I would say, in a production pipeline, there's going to be a lot of back and forth, which means your workflows need to be built for iteration from the very beginning. The roof tiles are where this kind of paid off most clearly. Instead of one big graph with everything in it, I split the work across separate purpose built graphs. First, a profile graph that you see here. This controls the shapes and values of the tiles itself. Change one value at the top, every tile updates. So initially when I started off, this was the original tile shape, and then I kind of moved here, and it was just took me like a minute or so. Secondly, I create a chipping generator that you see. I call it tile cracker. This is where all the breaking and erosion logic lives, separate from the profiler. So the profile feeds into it, but they don't really know about each other's internals. So if I were to adjust the tile shape, I'm not touching the chipping logic. If I want new damage variations, I'm not rebuilding the profile again. Both of those feed into the final graph, which you see here. That's the master graph. Um, the result is multiple chipping variations. I can dial in independently, clean, lightly chipped, heavy damage, all sorts of things, all from the same underlying structure. So you can see this is like my base profile, and then these are like random seed tile breakers, which is letting me break those eventually, like however I need. And that all of that goes into a single tile sampler. You can feed as many as you want and create all of those variations. The alternative here was just keeping everything in one graph, which would mean like everything cascades, right? If you're trying to change the shape, your noises would be reflected to it, you lose control very fast. So keeping systems modular is what keeps you in control, is what I learned from this one. All right. By the time the project was wrapped, this is what it added up to. So 18 custom procedural materials built over 6 to 8 weeks while working a full-time job. To put that in perspective, before this project, I would spend close to a week on a single material, perfecting it in isolation. Here, I had to think production first, speed, consistency, reuse, right? A genuinely different mode of working completely, from just a passion project to actually how the industry works. This was also the first time I'd worked seriously in an Unreal Engine after years being away. And the goal wasn't to build an environment which is like super cool, super huge, but it was something to build something that represented more of a stage for the materials. So, no crazy poly counts, no technical flexing, just to check, do these surfaces hold up in the engine? Do they support lighting correctly? Do they feel cohesive together in a real time context? For tools, I used Substance Designer, Painter, Blender, Unreal, the standard industry pipeline. For shaders, I used William Faucher's Easy Mapper plugin. That was just easier given the scope of this project. The theme across all of it was proceduralism, a node-based approach that kept everything adjustable and kept me focused on artistic decision instead of just reworking everything again. This project is where I stopped thinking like someone who's just making materials for fun and started thinking like someone who's building for production. With that said, that's the result. These are the three variations for roof tiles I created. This is like the final pass, and that's the render. Three variations for sand. So we wanted to have ripples, I would call them even. So smaller density, medium density, larger density. And this was the vertex blended result. The plaster, three variations again. The wood, a slightly different lighting shot, just to see how the materials are behaving in different lighting conditions. All right. So with that, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the mentorship itself. What I liked the most here was the honesty. If something wasn't working, Jonathan was quick to call it out. And that's rare than it should be. And it's genuinely what helped me move forward. The technical gaps it closed were real ones. I learned how materials actually tile in production, like I've been saying, versus how they look in just marmoset, how to make surfaces readable at a distance, how to plan trims properly, how a material artist actually thinks about efficiency and reuse. There's real differences between making a great hero material and making something that's scalable. This mentorship is where that distinction kind of become more concrete for me. What also made it feel different was feedback wasn't just limited to Jonathan. There are other mentors that would help in, chip in. So multiple people weighing in, you get different perspectives also. And that's sometimes very eye-opening because you're just so much into the same project at the same time, at all the times, right? And lastly, the community. I feel it feels like a home base, right? It's supportive, but it pushes you, and that combination is kind of hard to find. I also want to specifically shout out to Penny, Rose, Nikita, and everyone I've spoken with on the support and community team so far. You guys are awesome. The work that all of you guys put in doesn't go unnoticed. It's what makes this whole thing feel the way it does. So genuinely, thank you. With that, I would recommend Puzzle Forge without hesitation. I mean, I had fun doing this mentorship. You might have the same experience too. That said, so what's next? I recently wrapped up my second mentorship with Jonathan. This time we went bigger, more ambitious, and more complex. Yeah, and it's exciting. It's far from done. But I just wanted to share a small sneak peek with you guys, since you guys have been such a great audience. Don't ask me when it will be done. It's just a work in progress, and I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, so these are my socials. I think Penny also shared them in the chat. Come find me, follow along. You will see it when it's ready. I promise I don't bite. And that's all for me, folks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mandar, for sharing that with us. Love seeing the project and the additions that you added to it to kind of give us a little bit more of that like deeper dive, if you will. Oh,
Mhm.
hold on. I think my camera's having a hard time coming on, but you can hear me, guys, right? I think, hopefully. Uh, yes. Oh, okay. Thank you, Jess. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is lovely. So I guess one point that I heard you say that was really cool, or all of it's really cool if you don't mind, but I wanted to kind of see if you could like elaborate on what was what was helping guide your decision making when it came to when Jonathan had told you about your material, your flooring, of the concrete and the rock, or of the rock, just you could trip over the rock almost, right? Like what else was
Yeah.
influencing your decision making along the way? Were you pulling up any other references, or were you um, experimenting a little bit on the side, or just kind of putting yourself in like a player's shoes, so to speak? Like if you were a character walking in your scene, like what helps make you determine like some of those decision making skills as you went on? Or did that like point come up again? Because it's pretty interesting to say, like, think about it realistically, right? Like you can't really walk on such an uneven surface, or maybe wood looks too jagged, like whoever walks past that door frame is going to hurt themselves, like I don't
Yeah.
know if you have any other tips around that and like how to make those choices.
Certainly. So I think setting up the environment and getting a feel, I literally have like a mood board, which is just me walking around places in maybe Italy or Greece, just to get a feel of how that kind of environment and architecture communicates with the surfaces. So yeah, there were a lot of things, not just for rocks. I think, like you mentioned, wood. The first variation I had for the wood was just like the most awesomest manufactured wood that you can come across, which is like just perfect, right? And we look at it, we walked around and realized this kind of does not make sense for an environment that has no water around it. The wood would be really dry and damaged, right? It's something that's not really new. It's almost even abandoned to a certain extent.
Hmm.
So that's when we started tweaking them and making the wood more grayer than wetter, even like, or like just that heavy moist dark color that you get. So yeah, I have like three different variations of wood also sitting around. The same goes for tiles. The roof tiles I'm talking about, the first variation had like really dark colors, but then we wanted to show like, you'd have some sand just accumulating between those gaps and everything, so you just try to tone down those and then get everything back in. So the first and the second pass give you an idea of what the environment is, but the vibe, you always need to have a vibe check, is what I call.
Oh, I love that, a vibe check. Yeah, because that's, I mean, if you've never put yourself in an environment like this, like those are some nuances that are very um, defining between like realism and something that feels a little uninformed,
Right.
like your
Yes.
design ends up looking not as true, I guess if that makes sense, to your vision. So, no, that's really cool. That's really cool. Let's see. We have a question here from let's see, not Seeker. I hope I said that right. How did you balance height ranges across so many different materials early on so that vertex blending becomes easier in Unreal later?
That's a really good question. I struggled with that so much because the first time I was actually creating those blends, it's hard. Okay.
Mm.
The trick that I kind of used is when you have all your three variations ready, bring them into a separate graph and use material height blending, and then just check the height range and values. So there's a specific node in Substance Designer which lets you tweak the height range. That is your best friend in such a situation. So you can always run that comparison with a blend and check what those values are going to be. And height range is going to let you compare and just push certain values higher and bring certain values lower.
Hmm. I hope that answered your question. Let's see. Massimo is asking, the materials showcase videos, the closest one that you showed us toward the end, are rendered in Unreal and Marmoset? Question mark?
Yeah, so the renders, some of them are done in it's just a render that's done in, what's the thing that designer use? I should know this. Just the iRay, I think. Yeah, not even Marmoset. I did not use Marmoset for any of this. And then the roof tiles and everything was just so this is again designer render. This is done in Unreal, and the roof tiles were also done in Unreal. Yep. So two of them were done in Unreal because I had to show like vertex blending. Even actually three. The stones were also done in Unreal because I was, yeah, painting over them. And I think the final two I did in just Designer.
Oh, let's see. Eureka is asking, can you say again about the shader that you used in Unreal?
Oh yeah, of course. So there's a plugin called as Easy Mapper by William Posher. I think a lot of us mentorship folks actually land up using it. That's something that Jonathan also recommends. Um, it's just that once you have all of those values ready, you can just blend them in. It has all the settings that you would ever need, most of them. Eventually, if your environment reaches a certain point, you would have to create your own shader. But that's what I typically use. It's just thanks, Leela. Yeah, exactly that. Feel free to use it. It's really powerful. It's really good, and it's not super complex as well. So yeah, performance is very good.
Awesome. Thank you for plugging that, Layla. That's going to be very helpful for some folks. Definitely get to experiment and see what works best for you guys. Mander, what were some of the like, or I guess actually, I don't know if you, I don't remember you covering this. Like, how long did this project take from start to finish?
Yeah, it it took an eternity. I'm just kidding.
Eh,
Give me a
I
second. Let me
bet.
find.
I bet it did take a while. What? Let's see. I think when I hosted
I do
Layla's
have
last week,
that.
she said it was like about 6 months, right, Layla, for your project that we showcased. So,
Give me a second. I do have a slide that exactly says that. Yes. Yep. So it took about 6 to 8 weeks So
Impressive.
yeah, the entire project took me about 3 months, I think. But it was like on and off. Materials took me less, obviously. But yeah, working a full-time job, everything just goes so much slower. In general, if you're not, it's a small environment, honestly. There's not a lot of materials. With the second one, though, yeah, that's that one's much longer. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, that's really impressive. And Jonathan, I know, was with you for a good long while making this. Was there any other advices that Jonathan was giving you that you were like, oh my goodness, I didn't even think about that before, or I didn't consider that approach that was very pivotal to kind of this end result?
There were so many things like that. Honestly, like Nightseeker said, right?
Hmm.
The height blending thing, I didn't realize that was going to be an issue even. I was not even checking my roughness variations. And that was like, that's kind of evident in all the things that I've created before this. There's not enough of roughness variation and tiling, right? These are just one of materials which are not tiling really well. So I had to put in a lot of effort to understand how production materials, like, they may not look fancy. They are not supposed to catch attention, but they are supposed to look good. That was like the major thing for me. I'm like, okay. I can add in more detail because I love adding the high frequency detail. And Jonathan was just like, no, because from a distance you won't be able to see any of that. And I didn't realize it back then. I was just like, oh, wait, there was a huge back and forth on that. And yeah, in retrospect, now I see his point. Yes, totally.
Right, when you're zoomed
Um,
out that far, nobody's noticing the spider webs in that top left corner that are so small, right? Things like that.
Exactly. And I'm someone who loves fixating on those small details because they tell a story, right? And he's like,
Yes.
yeah, but your player will never like stuff their face in there. So yes.
Oh, a lovely question just popped through. It kind of goes into this maybe category as well of like being a little nitpicky, right? But I have trouble managing my masks in my trim sheets in Designer, specifically organic and inorganic materials of the same trim sheet. How do you manage, organize your masks to prevent blending errors? It's kind of a detail or a based
Ooh,
question.
very detail based question. Yeah, that's a good question though.
Hmm.
Managing. So I would actually go back to this is it actually goes back to how you plan your trim sheets. I'm just gonna move this here so that you guys can see and I can jump between different slides. So my suggestion for that would be creating something of this sort at the very beginning. So you know your spaces and you know like things won't be overlapping beyond that point. Just mark them up. This is something that Jonathan taught me very early on. And if you're having issues with mask, it depends on what node you're using for blending. If you're using just a blend node, you won't really get a mask output. You'd have to create that mask through a histogram scan or something of that sort. If you're using height blend, that kind of gives you a mask output, which makes your life slightly more easier. But yeah, it at the end of the day all comes down to how clean your calculations are for trim sheets. I hope that answers the question.
Very good. Not says yes. That helped out a lot. Excellent. Yeah, I know that, as artists, we're very, we're perfectionists to a huge degree. We really like to see things all look equally beautiful as we're rendering things out. But, it's a little bit of that trial and error, prioritizing the most important pieces and then kind of whittling it down to like your less important pieces that you can kind of get away with some cheats almost with some of this
Oh
stuff.
yeah, certainly. 100% agree to what you said, Benny. Yes.
Hmm. What were some of the, I guess if you really look back and you're kind of like, wow, I don't know if that was something I could have done differently with this piece. Like, what would you have added anything, or would have changed anything about it at this stage? You're already done with it, but like maybe you'd go back and do something different with it. What would that be?
There's so much. There's so much.
Speaking of
um,
perfectionism, a little bit, yes.
yeah. I mean, but that's the thing, right? I think I was talking to Leila about this during GDC as well. Like, these pieces that we create, they are ever evolving. They are very far away from being like done. So yeah. But yeah, to answer your question, I think I would certainly want to have it be a slightly larger piece in general, than just like this small concentrated area. We were planning actually on having some water, some oasis like stuff in the back as well, some more VFX,
Okay.
those windows and doors kind of moving, that would add
Yeah.
more to the realism, the trees waving. There was a bunch of like different ideas, and then I was just like, okay, I need to move on to the next one, maybe. Yeah. So yeah, there's always so much more that one can do. Like maybe create more breaking in the roof tiles, like just have one overly exposed area which kind of shows the wood underbar in there. Yeah, and I mean the meshes could certainly be better because I'm a texture artist. My
Hmm.
meshing is, well, yeah, it can always be improved. So yeah.
Well, that's very good. I mean, I would have liked to seen a little Oasis part in there too. That could be fun. But I totally get it. I'm with you on, once a project is done, it's really the mileage that matters, right? The more you do these projects, the better and more, I guess, skilled you are, more refined you become, if that makes sense, because you're kind of
Yeah.
problem solving and you're discovering things that you've never gotten hung up on before, that now that you're working them out, that the next time you're putting another kind of diorama or like I don't know, any sort of small close knit project, the faster and the more efficient you're going to become. um, is there any advice that you'd give somebody who's just now starting a project like this, who wants to experiment with materials, wants to experiment with texture? Like, what practices do you do to kind of stay frosty?
Stay frosty.
Or is it just diving into the next project and seeing if we can work more out?
So I would say, in terms of when starting off a new project, play around your strengths, right? Because if you're trying to create something that's like for this project, for instance, right? The first thing that I told Jonathan was like, dude, I don't think I'm gonna be good with ZBrush. Let's just try to avoid that. So I did not land up using ZBrush. Like, hey, I'm guilty, but I was just like, okay, I will pick and choose my battles, right?
Oh,
So
interesting,
that's
interesting.
something. Yeah, yeah. So maybe that was something. And again, the focus of this was like a material art mentorship anyway.
Hmm.
So I was just expecting more like designer related stuff rather than just jumping in creating polys and this and that. So play around your strengths. For even for the second environment, here I learned ZBrush, but I was just like, okay, tileable surfaces, modularity, I kind of know these things, and I will just present that. If it's like going to be a portfolio piece, you need to present your best foot forward, right? Yes, learning always helps, but then the stuff that you're creating while you're learning shouldn't be on your portfolio, maybe,
Hmm.
right? The
That's a
concept is
common
fine,
one.
but like I just, it's like you still remember the first 3D model you make. Imagine posting that on your portfolio. I mean, it's sort of a gray area if you want to have that there or no, right? So
Hmm. It's the same thing with your materials. I'm sure, like again, you were showing us at the beginning of your presentation a little bit of the first iterations, right? But like if you left it at that first iteration phase, like the quality there, between the refining, all of those different periods of time where you're seeing these different versions of it improve, like it's not a day and night thing, right? Like it does take experimentation, it does take some time to get to that product, that final end result you need, but you shouldn't showcase always necessarily that first piece first. Keep going at it.
never,
If you're
yeah,
unsatisfied with it, keep running with it and see what cool effects you get like toward the end. Um, that's really fun.
hell yeah, 100%, yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing for the few previous variations as well. Like the first materials, these took me like months to get out. Okay, and I
Oh,
was just
wow.
like,
I didn't
okay,
know. Okay.
yeah, like I used to take a month to produce a material. Now I can't have that anymore. But yes, it was a lot of work, and again, you should be more flexible with what you create, is what I also learned. Like I can't be like I'm done with this. I'm not going to touch this again, or like this is perfect or whatever. Like you should always know, okay, maybe there's certain things I can improve, but it's not like 10,000 nodes graph, which you can't really go back to and keep on editing. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, just the iteration and the process, tracking the process helps. Yes, having that Miro board that we have, just tracking it helps so much rather than just jumping into one material for a month. Yeah, that's not a good way to go about things for me at least.
Yeah, fair enough. We do have, just for disclaimer, so everybody knew what he mentioned there, was that we do have a running Miro board where all of our mentees can kind of see everybody's work and kind of like what we're all working on and see the progress kind of build. But it's good to kind of keep tabs on yourself a little bit. Like you can kind of document your process. You're kind of looking back at what you were doing before, and you can reference it. You can say, "Oh, this was what I was at, or this is where I was at this stage." I can see now clearer or in a more clearer way, like where I'm at now with this, and I'm on the right track. It's kind of like a little checks and balances as you progress. And, as you were saying, over a couple months, doing that, I'm sure there was a period of time where you look back and you're like, okay, my first iteration has definitely come a long way since then, but I still have more to do. I can still push this further. Um, I guess in the line of that, like, where do you know when are you? I guess, oh, that's a double question. That's a double point too. I know we're never satisfied as artists. We're always wanting more. We can always do more. But how did you know when
Right.
this was the satisfying part or point in your process, like where you're like, okay, I'm good with this. I can move on now.
I would say, and this is something that I do, I walk away from my project for a little bit before actually publishing it, right?
There
And
you
I
go.
come back. And if I feel like it's 90% there, right? Or
Yeah.
even 85, I would say, just just roll with it. And obviously get feedback from people because just sharing it in
That's right.
general just helps so much because you have different perspectives chipping in. Sometimes the people you work with also have an idea of how much you can push yourself, right? So getting that feedback definitely helps. Or like sometimes I have my friends telling me, dude, you're pushing yourself too much. Stop. So that's where I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back. I need to take a step back. So yeah, there's these things that you can do, but like walking away for a little bit does help.
Hmm. Very good. Rest the eyes. Come back to it later, and you
Yeah.
come back with a. You know what also works is if you look at it on a different screen. I don't know why that works, but if you do, you come back and you look at it
Yes.
on a different, like a laptop or even on your phone. If you took a screenshot or something really quick, it appears different a lot of the times. Your artwork.
Yes. Yes.
Let's see, Jet.
Honestly, Penny, I hate that so much because it's like, oh, why is that like I am someone who likes that consistency and proceduralism and
Oh,
things of that sort. And I'm like,
yes.
this is beyond me. I don't know what the person I'm going to show this is going to see at the end of the day. It's like, ah,
And it's
yeah.
something too to
Anyway,
think about that when, an art director is someone's, kind of casually browsing through work, right? Like, or through things that come in through their inbox. A teammate messages them like, hey, take a look at this. And it's on their phone, right? Like, oh, how does that look when it's really, really small? To somebody, does it stand out? Like all these little things to consider. Um,
yep.
Oh, let's see. Jess asks, how do you keep the momentum going after working on a project like this for so long, especially with your newer pieces?
That's a great question, Jess. So like I said, walking away helps sometimes.
Hmm.
Go touch grass.
Go touch
The
grass.
best references, yeah, the best references that you will find is just going outside. Going outside for a walk alone just helps in general. Just being in the nature for me personally is like I'd be the person who's just staring at random rocks or like cracks and just trying to figure out if my rocks look right or
I
like the
love
cracks that
that.
I'm working on.
I love that so much.
Yeah, yeah,
Can't take you anywhere. You're gonna be stuck staring at rocks. Like, okay, come on, let's
yes.
go. Oh.
And I think the second thing I would do is just scroll ArtStation because you get inspired so much by all of these amazing artists, what they are doing every
Hmm.
single day and posting new stuff. You feel like, oh my God, I am recharged enough. And
Hmm.
I just need to get back into it. But yeah, take breaks. Obviously, I need to learn that more than anyone else. Penny might know. But yeah, just look at what work other people are doing and just get inspired by that. um, yeah, those are the two things I'd say. Very important.
That is good. Yeah, momentum is one thing, but it is good to know when to take a step back, and you feel it in your bones. at that point, right? Like your eyes are heavy, your back is starting to hurt a lot, and you're getting kind of crabby, and it's like, okay, yeah, go and take a step back, take a walk, come back to it at a later time. Some of us work under very high pressure, deadlines too. So, and you working at Caterpillar, like, what are some of like your methods for like just staying balanced? Is it mostly just listening kind of to your body, listening to like these indicators that are telling you to take a break, or how do you manage like powering through your day to day if you have a full-time job and you're also working on these projects? Time management's pretty key, I figure.
Right, right. I would say, I mean, I would be lying if I say I have it all figured out. Some of my coworkers are here, they'd be like, liar, we see you just dying
Oh.
like at the end of the day. No, but jokes aside, I think what helps at that point is just sometimes you'll end up trying to do multiple things at the same time. Like, you're trying to have multiple projects in, maybe trying to do new things together, get your life organized. You're trying to set up extreme schedules wherein, yeah, I want to spend 1 hour in the gym every single day. You might have to just skip on some of that so that you give yourself enough space to rest,
Hmm.
right? Especially during the duration of that project, because again, that's not going to be your entire life. So you have to pick and choose which sacrifices you're going to make in order so that you can pour more energy into what you're working on. These projects are not easy. They require a lot of energy, definitely. And yeah, you just have to make some choices. That's all I'd say. It's not that straightforward.
Right. Pick and choose your battles. I think it's good for anybody, because I've had several conversations with a couple students in the past where it becomes overwhelming to manage a project like this and see it to full fruition, only because of the responsibilities we all have in our personal lives, but on top of the pressure of putting together such a well thought out professional portfolio piece, that it is intimidating, but it's also um, even more so intimidating to stay organized a lot of the time. And how you were saying, or actually in one of your slides, you kind of broke down kind of like into three or four categories of the timeline, right? Like you had like your first chunk where it was just getting everything measured and getting everything kind of built up, um, you know, to start yourself off for success. I think a lot of us need that advice to work a little more efficiently and kind of be on a schedule, kind of, or help us manage our time better through maybe the use of an app. Maybe you set a schedule for yourself, a checklist for your day to day, right? I think that's a lot of things or that's a big point that some of us artists do forget, that we can't go in blind a lot of the time. And a lot of that pre setup is very pivotal. Um, I guess, can I ask, how much pre-planning did you really do for this project, for instance? Was it something, you and Jonathan landed on this as a good balance for material's sake, but was it like a theme that just stuck with you and you're like, hey, like, I think this is the one, I think this really hits, but the pre-planning that went up to that, were you kind of mulling over that for a while?
Yeah. So I would say for this project specifically, I had no clue jumping into the mentorship, like what I was getting into. I was just hoping to create more material balls with Jonathan, and then he was just like, we should do an environment.
A
So
whole
I think the
project,
first three
yeah.
weeks were just like most of the planning, 3 to 4 weeks even. If I can just at some point share that. No, actually, no, it's a mess. The mirror board is a mess right now for the first
Oh, it's a
mentorship.
mess, and it'll take forever to load up.
Right.
Oh.
Yes, yes. But yeah, you can see like the first 4 weeks was like literally me struggling and trying to put together anything. Like this is what you
Oh.
would see. My output was on like week 6 or 7 ish. So a lot
Okay.
of time was spent into like planning, getting things right. Yeah, I almost spent a month behind that. Yes.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I have a quote for that actually. So in programming, in engineering and programming, we have this thing is any program is 70% algorithm, so 70% planning and 30% actually coding. And that is very true.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great quote and a great reference as well. I mean, that really is a lot of how that works. And imagine if it being flipped, right? Like there's the reason why you spend so much time on a project sometimes is because you put so little into the planning phase. And if you put more into the
Right.
planning phase, the actual work part becomes less. It's such an interesting flip if you think about it that way. Love that quote.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. Oh, let's see. Valentina asks, I joined the call a bit later, so oh, it's okay. Don't you worry. We do have this recorded. Did you prepare any of the work before you started your mentorship with Jonathan, or was most of the things planned, like, or everything planned after you started, or as soon as you started?
Yeah, I think no, I did not prepare anything. We landed on this even like this was like second week. Week two is where we actually were like, okay, cool, let's do this. This is kind of cool. So
Excellent.
yeah, that my suggestion would be just jump into the mentorship with a plan at least. So that just might save you a couple of weeks there.
There you go. I know, for instance, like Layla was actually working on hers before a little bit too, so that's kind of cool. It's like, you can come into these mentorships with Vessel Forge two different ways, really. Like you can come prepared, having already tackled a project or are underway with a project, and you need help with the refinement, right? Or you need help with the workflow, or you want to get any last, I wouldn't say last because, that you really should come to your peers and getting feedback from mentors at an earlier stage in your project so it's easier for you to kind of make changes. However, you can come into these mentorships with a starting point already. The other side of that coin is that you can come to it with a fresh slate, and there's something that you want to start and take from the very beginning all the way to fruition. So it really just depends on your preference and what you want to work on. If this is for a portfolio piece, if this is for experimentation, if this is for like working out a kink that's really been driving you nuts in your workflow, that you're just like, I need the guidance to help me get through this because it's not every time I try it this way, it's just not working out. And YouTube videos aren't working for me. And the advice I'm getting, it's good advice, but I don't know how to implement it, right? Like you getting into a mentorship, I can speak toward that. It can be a very day and night difference when you reach out for help. And you get that more one-on-one help because of, they know what they're doing, they know what they're talking about, and they've all been through it before as well. Um, so yeah, it's
100%. I would like to add to it actually.
mhm,
It depends on the mentor that you're mentoring with and what
mhm,
mentorship is it, right? For me, with Jonathan, I kind of knew around the second time, like I know what the workflow is, what the ideology is, because we spent a lot of time figuring that out in the very beginning. So I kind of knew that, okay, this is how Jonathan approaches trim sheets. That's how they're going to look like. Modularity is going to be XYZ. The second project was much faster. I didn't really need him for the most part. I just needed him towards the end, wherein I was just polishing those materials, getting all of those details in. So yeah, if it's like if the mentor is new, if you're very new to the experience, yes, I think I agree with you there. Wherein like just having that initial phase kind of helps. But once you know get the hang of it, once you have an idea of how things are gonna be, uh, you can save some of your time there and then focus more on like intermediate to advanced stuff or things of that sort.
exactly. Oh, yes, another good question. Would you say that you had beginner or intermediate skills before you started your mentorship for substance designer materials? I guess more
I would
experience would
say
go
I was
into
a
substance
beginner.
too, with the program
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I would say like while my work looks good, like it's hard to tell that like it's an intermediate or a beginner at this point. But I would certainly say it was more closer to a beginner because I was just trying to recreate some of the surfaces that I saw on ArtStation. I wasn't really thinking as an intermediate material artist. So that yeah, it looks good, but doesn't really mean that it is correct.
Hmm. I mean, how you were still working at Caterpillar while taking this mentorship too, and you were working there prior, correct?
Yes.
Very, very cool, very cool. So, I mean, what has that experience been like for you as well? Like already working in this field, but still kind of refining what your process is like. Is it easier to now implement some of your day-to-day projects, having gone through projects like this?
It certainly is. Mentorship has helped me so much with how I approach in general materials for production pipelines as well. So, one of the biggest misconceptions that I had was like, cool, I'm making really cool materials for personal projects. At work, I'm not making these cool materials. And then after talking to Jonathan, I kind of realized like, no, material art is mostly about creating those surfaces and slightly boring materials which look really good rather than creating high displacement materials which are like, oh my god, this is like a one-off piece kind of a thing. So that has shaped my entire way of thinking in approaching like details, for instance, right?
Hmm.
I would try to use high density noise patterns for my work at cat, and that would just like probably not needed, right? It depends on how far the viewer is going to be. So it has certainly helped me in terms of tweaking certain parts of the pipeline, which I typically work in. And yeah, now I'm just way too fast in creating those materials. Initially, it used to take me a week maybe. Now it's just like half a day, you got something out already. So
Wow, I love hearing that, Mandar. That's excellent. I mean, it is good. You kind of reach like a turning point with somebody who's there to guide you, and it really just shapes the way you work moving forward. And it really does like satisfy, right? Like your day-to-day challenges and like the things that you need to accomplish. It kind of helps out because you reflect on that all the time, the things that you've learned, and it does help spur you along a little quicker even, which is great. So I'm so happy for you. This is lovely. I wanted to say, guys, thank you all for joining. We are at the hour, but if there's any last minute questions, feel free to put them in here in the chat last minute. I'm also going to keep our live Q&A thread open. So if there's anything else you want to ask Mandar, I don't know, you invited people to connect with you here as well. So actually, let me just plug you in again here. So uh, a little selfless plug here so you can get some extra follows and maybe people can reach out and say hello. But you guys are all here in this community and we're all in this server, so please use this server as a go-to for you. Like we're all here, we're all looking in, tuning in. I hope that people offer each other advices, and I think if you are considering joining Vessel Forge as part of the mentorship part, if you are curious about what that looks like, or you need maybe just somebody to talk to about, you know, what you should bring, to the table. Like maybe I don't have something as a project as well thought out as a project to bring, or something that I want to work on, but maybe we can talk about it, right? Just get in touch with us. We're happy to like walk you through things. We're happy to offer suggestions prior to start. Super no obligation. Just want to make sure that you guys are being set up for success. Not only that, but that you're paired with the right mentor for your work. We've got a lot of environment artists actually here on our team, but they do very specific things, very specific workflows. We've got two technical artists on the team, right? They do also two very different types of workflows, even though they have that crossover knowledge, right? Like we just want to figure out and make sure that you're getting the best advice that you can for your buck, and obviously for your time, right? Like we want to see you guys get those jobs at the end of the day, and really succeed in your projects. But thank you. If you have any other questions, do reach out. We're always here for you. And Mandar, I can't say how grateful we are again for you presenting this project. I like the additions that you added. That was really cool. Day and night, I'm like, yes, I love learning more about what it was that you went through with this project. And I know you're working on another one that maybe we'll get some more info on in a few weeks, months' time, however long it takes
yeah,
you.
I don't want to say anything. Yeah, yeah.
Yep, yep. So stay tuned, folks. Mandar's working on, he's cooking some other cool stuff. But thank you,
Yeah.
Mandar, again, for spending time with us today. And thank you, everybody else, for
Yeah.
spending a Saturday with us. That's really lovely of you. Um,
Thank you for hosting this, guys. Always happy to present, show my work. Thank you so much, Manny.
Oh, no problem, Mandar. You're awesome. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope to be seeing you all in our channels, and I hope to see you guys posting in the Inspira. I hope to see you posting in the community chat, and saying hi to all the new joiners. Like I love it when you guys talk to one another. So please do engage, and we'll all hang out at some point, I'm sure. Okay, Mandar, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so very much, and everybody have a wonderful weekend. Okay, bye
Okay.
bye bye
Bye. Thanks, guys.
bye bye bye.